Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 33 of the GreggHoush Show with
You are GreggHoush.
Local Hillary apologist and the wonderful Kayla Avery.
No, apologist.
And
I know okay, look, Mac's not getting a intro tonight because you just can't say apologist when I am
when it's true. I know it's horrible.
I'm not an apologist. I was a supporter. And I'm still a supporter because I support her.
I'm sorry.
And you engage in apologetics on her behalf.
No, I just think that she's no different than any other politician.
That's damning.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
That's pretty bad to say you support someone who's no different than the rest of the politicians.
No,
they're all horrible people.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem with them. Is
wow.
they're all bad.
Not all
that
of them
was
are
rude.
horrible.
I haven't even said anything that mean about her. I literally have been nicer to her than you just were.
She's a politician. That's what they do.
So, all kinds of fun stuff from Roy Moore to Paradise Papers, you know.
Speaking of nice politicians.
Nice politicians. Let's start with the Paradise Papers this time, maybe?
Can I just appreciate the alliteration that these hackers are doing with
Panama
Papers, Paradise Papers.
I'm a fan. I want to see what they got next.
I know, because everything comes in threes. It's the rule of three. You can't. So there's another hack coming, and if there's not a delightful alliteration to name it, I will be very upset.
With what they've been up to so far, unless they are like already in the process of getting caught right now, I feel confident there's more than just one more coming.
Like if there's like titillation
I just hope they all involve the letter P each time.
Or maybe the P tape is the third paper.
Oh, no, because that's not alliteration.
I know, but it would be nice.
Indeed.
I'm just going to sit there. Like, if anyone has the P tape.
There could be a lot more coming. There could be a lot more coming.
I just, keep the alliteration coming is all I ask.
Oh, Paradise Papers.
Paradise Papers. So...
Are we going into paradise here?
Sweet.
Well,
it's a sweet, sweet, wealthy paradise of...
Welcome to paradise.
Of Shell Islands and...
Another day in paradise.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Of evading taxes.
So this is, for all you people who might remember the Panama Papers, this is the same group of hackers
Which the Panama Papers were what, like 300 years ago by now?
By internet standards.
Years, yeah.
But not actually 300
So the
years
Panama Papers were, of course, the law firm of Fonseca there down in Panama, and they set up shells, tax havens, and all these other shelters and moved people's money around, and they claimed didn't do anything illegal, but there's a lot of laundering in that paperwork that sure looks fishy to me. And it showed a fair amount of rich people, a fair amount of politicians and other people doing bad things. Ended up with the prime minister over in Iceland getting asked to leave. A few other politicians in trouble.
He was politely suggested that he should leave his office by 175,000 Icelandians.
It could have been the biggest majority in the history of a country's asking their leader to go away. I'm pretty sure
they all said please in Icelandic.
They did.
I think they might have been a little disappointed by his decision of which method of leaving the office to take.
I mean, I don't know how the Icelandic people deal with things.
I took the elevator.
I know. It's like he didn't go down his rabbit hole like we thought he was going to.
So the Paradise Papers come from the firm of Appleby.
Which is not Applebee's.
Right.
Very upsetting.
Amazingly,
not Grizzlebees for those C-Lab friends out there.
Surprisingly enough, this one might actually be worse than the restaurant.
Is
Indeed.
that possible?
Pretty hard to do.
It's hard to think of, but
I mean, I can't
looking at the evidence, I think they might be.
So this one is, reaching for the top. If you look at, Fonseca, you're talking, well, they hit the Mets. If we're talking baseball here, they got the Mets. They broke into the Mets. But this right here, this is the Yankees. This is the big boys. And
which is like a kind of like a Freudian slip because the Yankees are also known for like kind of fraud.
Yeah, totally. So with this one, they break in, they get all the data, and it's 13.4 million documents, 1.4 terabytes, which when you're talking documents, is quite a lot of them.
It is.
And they need to deal with all of these documents. And so they went to the same organization, the same independent investigative journalist organization they did before, and got them everything. That organization got, I believe it was 100 different organizations together. 380 estimated journalists actually worked on the project.
On this one, how many was in the Panama Papers? Because I know it was a
somewhere in the
shit ton
60s or so of organizations, like 60.
How many journalists do you remember? Because
a couple hundred.
Yeah.
But they worked for the last year across all of these documents to come up with the good stuff.
Which you have 13 million documents for a year. I feel like that's a lot. Like that's working really fast.
There's more coming. What they've released so far is just the first wave of documents. They're still
it's
digging.
So impressive amount that they went through.
Oh, I'm just impressed that they had like 300 people working on this for a year, and we only heard there was no hint of it until it dropped.
Yes, it did not leak. These journalists did an
good
amazing job.
So Mueller's behind it?
One can only assume.
I mean, he keeps a tight seal.
He does.
So the day these papers came out, they came out on Sunday and about a week ago, and they were out at 3 p.m. Eastern time here, where we live. I turn on all the news organizations on TV. I flip through. I go to the news app on my phone, which consolidates all the other news sources out there, from the Times all the way down to like SB Nation for sports. I mean, everything's in there. And I'm having a real hard time finding anything about the Paradise Papers being reported by any mainstream. And so I have to go online and go to sub-pages on sites like, The Guardian, which I think is a great journalistic entity. And they've got an entire subsection just dedicated to these things. And I watch all day long flipping through the TV as nothing gets talked about.
Well,
I saw that.
Sunday, something else kind of happened.
Something else might have happened.
A couple of hours later, because I did see it on Twitter.
Not a couple of hours later, about 10 minutes later.
Was it 3 o'clock? I thought it was.
It was
all very close.
Yeah. So here's what happened on Reddit. Being a podcast, let's talk about the internet. So on Reddit, the post gets made that the Paradise Papers have been released. And it's out there and everyone starts commenting on it. But the very first comment actually is this language. And I quote, "And a mass shooting in 5, period, 4, period, 3, period, ... Followed by a comment that happened right afterward in response to that one saying mass shooting in Texas. And then all of the media ignores the Paradise Papers. Now, I am the least conspiracy theorist person, I think, in terms of internet activist types that I know.
Seems likely.
And even I looked at that for a second and was like, that is interesting. But then you look at all the facts. And of course, like this one, that guy was nuts and this happened. It just happened to, But it was interesting that people were saying right after the Paradise Papers, there's going to be a mass shooting. It's going to happen today.
I can't speak to that because I don't stay on Reddit. But I did see people tweeting about this, and then immediately it was this horrific act of violence that everyone saw coming before that it happened, but yet there was nothing we can do about it. And someone sold him 4 guns, and it just.
So that drowns out the Paradise Papers.
Well, it drowned it out for the day and a half, but it's back in because America.
We now know more facts.
Well, we know more facts. America has a short attention span. We also know that this guy clearly shouldn't have had a gun. We can move on now because it's America.
Indeed.
Well, you say that, but anytime there's, anything big that they could be discussing, they'll continue talking about whatever bullshit story gets, eyeballs on the screen and
whatever
a
leads to page
sensationalist right up until, the next one. So they can continue ignoring these boring news stories in favor of whatever sensationalism.
Most of the world isn't reading about the Paradise Papers when they come out, or most of America, I should say. I mean,
Yeah, I think a lot of the rest of the world is paying a bit more attention.
Yeah, but, here in America, we were getting force-fed the horrific story, and it was a horrific story that everyone should have heard about, mostly because, one of these days, maybe this leads to gun control.
But on the other hand, at the same time, experts say that, giving them the attention like this all over the media just encourages more mass shootings. You're telling them, hey, if you really want a lot of attention, you know how you get it? Shoot a bunch of people. It's super easy. Anyone can do it.
So, and I'm completely and when I watch any type of a horrific event of like violence that like gets played out in the news, my immediate thought is this person probably wanted some type of martyrism and like wanted some type of celebrity because we do sensationalize the shooter. And I think the biggest difference, or the clearest obvious difference of what happened on Sunday versus other ones is because this guy, there's no way he should have owned a gun. Like he was legally should have been prevented from it. He has a history of domestic violence.
Of course.
It's like he did prison time. He got rejected
He
for
escaped from a mental facility.
But he also got rejected for a firearms permit by Texas, which you don't even need a firearms permit to own a gun in Texas. And this guy got rejected for it.
Also, I believe that the reason that he was court-martialed from the military was because he threatened.
No, he assaulted his wife and cracked his 2-year-old stepson's skull.
Yeah, was that actually the reason for the...
Absolutely,
okay, because apparently there was also, or maybe it was the reason that he was sent to the mental institution in the first place then, was that he had threatened to kill some of his officers.
Yeah, and sent threatening messages to his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And because he's been married twice.
Right.
And I think
let's stop giving this guy,
No, but it's just like the difference
airtime.
between like I guess him, this situation versus other ones because
they like do this all the time.
I know, but like at the same time, like
he should not have been sold weapons like that.
No.
That literally
every sign that they basically
if the gun control we can get is literally just someone that bad doesn't get a gun. That's a good first step.
Also,
Could we get that in place?
But also, like the Air Force fucked
Well, he's
up.
supposed to be able to.
They're not reporting things properly.
Yeah, he was supposed to be reported to the FBI, and he would have been on the FBI list, and he wouldn't have cleared the minimum background check that like they do on their computer, which basically is just like refreshing a screen.
Now we're doing the same thing that shitty media did, and
Yeah, so
talking
let's
about that
move
instead
on
of the Paradise
to
Papers.
the actual Paradise Papers, which that mass shooting actually covered up for a couple days.
No, it didn't cover it up. It happened. It just happened at it just happened.
Inopportune
No one
time.
paid
I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard to speak about this without sounding like an asshole, right?
Yeah, like it's not like it's life, but and
So,
it's tragic.
The Paradise Papers, they exposed many rich people's politicians, monarchs, information on offshore investments, shell companies they own that do bad things, and sure, there's Trump, there's everyone in here. One of the ones that I thought was interesting was the Duchy of Lancaster, an investment portfolio.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
An investment portfolio set up to provide income for the Queen. It was revealed to have placed $10 million in offshore funds in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda.
It's actually just under 10 million in one thing in, I believe, the Cayman. There are like 5 million in Bermuda.
Right.
Okay, dumb question. Is the Cayman Islands sovereign, or are they like a territory?
They're sovereign. Right?
I'm not sure.
It's because Bermuda's a territory, right?
Yes. But
They're part of the UK.
yeah, they're the Commonwealth.
Okay, yeah. I just wasn't sure if the Cayman, because everything goes to the Cayman Islands. Like, are they sovereign, or are they like?
They are a British overseas territory as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so her money ended up being invested in a bunch of companies that are, said to have slave labor, child labor, sweatshops, and all that other fun
That's
stuff.
every company, though, essentially. Mostly.
Well,
No, but there are
like
specific ones that, as a
actual.
company, set those up. Like you could own part of the Gap, but you could own part of the shipping company that ships to the Gap, or you could own part of the sweatshop itself. Or you could own part of the company that builds the sweatshops and enslaves people. And
sends
they
their
owned
slaves
that
to the
company. They owned that company.
Sounds like a great company to invest in.
Yeah, so like there's all kinds of bad players in this that know what's going on, but like you can own the worst.
And oh, did they?
And so that's where some of her money was, which is so wrong.
Millions and millions.
And one of the things that has been suggested is that the Queen was badly advised. A claim that, of course, makes the case for.
Well, she's like what, 300 years old?
Well, it makes the case for a
know, sure.
100% tax on all wealth that individuals are unable to keep track of themselves.
Right? Like, if you can't even keep track of it, then why should you be able to have it?
Seriously.
What claim do you have to it at that point?
So beyond the interesting one of the Queen over there across the pond, let's talk about.
Which I think, honestly, I find her involvement is like the funniest because she doesn't have any power.
What does she even know about
yeah, like,
it?
but also, like, she's 100 years old. She doesn't have any power. Like, she's really
the
rich.
last time she did something relevant was what? Serving as a nurse during World War II?
No, I think waving. I think getting to the her balcony and just waving at people.
I think I used something to the effect of matters. I don't think waving at people counts.
Well, no, because people it matters that she's still alive.
Right, they pay her $82 million a year of public money,
yes,
because they think it like helps with tourism.
It kind of does. I can see that.
Yeah,
It actually
I
does
can
bring
see
in
it too.
a fair bit of tourism.
But I
to
just
the
think
UK.
that's like, to me,
Absolutely.
it's just so funny because it's like she doesn't have any power, so it's just
Doesn't
like
do- well, theoretically, she can dissolve parliament.
I guess.
Or
But
no,
then
no
she-
one would let her.
Yeah,
but also, and then like
Technically,
she would
she's
have to
still-
like start doing things, and
Yeah,
like
then
ugh.
she'd have to actually start doing work. And
And she's like,
Who wants that? Like, that's for
I'm
other people.
Done.
look, they abdicated all that power like a century ago for a reason.
And a very good one, because Charles would have been a horrible person to have any power.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are over to all the fun Trump connections to this,
Oh,
which
yeah.
What?
Shockingly enough.
Trump connections?
How could this happen?
Spoiler alert.
so good old Kushner, Jared, they him and his friends, they own a little offshore company. And that company did some business with Yuri Milner that turned into some real estate deals. Yuri Milner is, of course, a Russian oligarch, a super rich tech investor over there, who some Americans have said isn't as close as other oligarchs to Putin, but that's just not a thing. If you're worth billions of
mean-
dollars and you're in Russia, he controls you.
Well,
Or he
some of
takes your
them-
money.
Some
You-
of
you
them
don't get the
aren't
choice.
as close to him as others.
Oh, they don't go
But-
out like fishing together,
Right.
but he still has just as much control
Well,
over
yeah,
him
exactly.
as he does the others.
If you are legitimately not close to Putin and you're one of those billionaires, you're either dead, had all your assets taken, and are probably also dead, or you
an
fled the
expatriate.
country.
Yeah. So there's a really interesting one that, of course, Kushner did not add to any of his documentation. So maybe he needs to spend another day adding to that and revising his documents.
and then blaming another staffer for something that the staffer can't legally do.
And then we get Commerce Secretary. We
Good
get
old Wilbur Ross.
Wilbur Ross, this man who it turns out should not be Commerce Secretary.
Well, we already knew that because he was already on the board of the Bank of Cyprus, which is a massive money laundering instrument that no one legitimate really wants to do business with, and which had a whole shitload of Russians come in on the board just a few years ago, right around the time that he left. But
And according to my dad, he's a fucking asshole.
I
It's a
don't
direct-
doubt that.
Indeed.
That's a direct quote
Indeed.
from a dad.
So Wilbur Ross and his group WL Ross, which, good name there. It owns between 2 and 10 million in a shipping company, Navigator. Because it's offshore and shell companies and all kinds of games, it's actually kind of hard to tell, but it's between 2 and 10 million. And this shipping company, of course, took contracts from Russia's company, what is it, with Gazprom,
And
Rosneft,
Sibur.
Seaver, and in one of them, they brought liquid, where is it on here? Liquefied gas out of Russia for Putin's son-in-law under a decade-long contract initially worth $226 million. So Navigator, part owned by Wilbur Ross, our new Commerce Secretary, was making that amount of money from Putin's son-in-law's firm, and that was not disclosed. That's
That was back
that's a
in
problem.
2013.
That's a problem. Yes, that was in 2013. And then we've got Sibur, which of course he also has some ownership in. And they're doing all sorts of contracts and getting their money out of Gazprom Bank, which is, of course, basically state-run.
It also sounds like the worst prom theme ever.
And so there are, easily 20 direct connections between good old Wilbur Ross and his $2.9 billion fortune and the Russians, all of which he did not disclose.
And he hasn't divested from any of his businesses either as Commerce Secretary. Am I correct?
As far as I know, you're right.
So it's like the fact that it's like he's still like invested in his companies, still profiting off his companies, being commerce secretary. You know, it's like it doesn't even matter like what connections he has with his companies. Like they could literally any connection, and the fact that he's still in his company is like a direct violation, or it should be. It should be.
And of course, you know, just in case anyone's doubtful on why Wilbur Ross is involved in the Trump administration, there's the minor fact that he and his wife own a $23 million house in Palm Beach that's 5 minutes from Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, yeah, they're buddies.
Yeah.
They are indeed buddies. So there are lots of fun direct connections and lots of heavy details in all these fun articles. I would recommend going to the Guardian's Paradise Papers portal to read through some of that. I mean,
They've done good coverage on
some
this.
of the funnier ones are like Bono owning a strip mall in a small African nation that is a tax haven.
Bono really aggravates me because he has those stupid fucking sunglasses on all the goddamn time, and he acts like he's so great and like such a philanthropist and loves everybody when he's really just a fucking asshole.
When he takes the sunglasses off, he's in such horrible pain that he has to put them back on. He has actual medical condition that forces him to wear very specialized lenses in order to keep himself from getting a headache so bad that he has to lay on the ground.
That's what he says. He's
I
still
know
a
someone else
goddamn.
with the same condition.
He's still a goddamn asshole.
Yeah, that doesn't change that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like
The
the
sunglasses
argument.
have a reason.
The argument that he's wearing these weird yellowy kind of sunglasses indoors, well, yeah, sure. Normally, that's one of the reasons you're a douchebag. That just turns out that he has no choice on that one. So just look at the other 50 reasons he's a douchebag. Don't pull that one
Look,
out.
What he's saying is,
You remember when Trump kind
Bono-
of went nuts on the person who might not be able to actually control the fact that they're slightly disabled? You're kind of doing that when you go after Bono for the sunglasses.
I don't trust a goddamn word out of his mouth. So it's like we don't even know if he's really blind.
It's funny that you say goddamn because like every single U2 song is actually about God. So,
it's true.
like literally all of them.
Yeah.
Everything. It's all God. His relationship in that one was God. It's kind of weird.
More of the reasons to hate him.
So he owns like 5.8 million British pound in worth strip mall in a small African nation for a tax haven. The strip mall itself is supposedly not worth that. It's supposedly worth around 130,000, but it's valued at 5.8 million for some reason. I don't know how the math works. But there is a lot of rich and powerful people in the Paradise Papers here, and there's going to be a lot more revelations.
So here's my question. Why is this allowed?
Because the rich people get to write the laws.
But I mean, like, maybe I just don't, like, why is it illegal, or not illegal, why is it legal for people to go from other countries to set up banks in the Cayman Islands and the Bermuda when they don't have residents there?
Oh, because it's the whole thing about, you want to do business in a country, you need to have access to banking that's in that country. So these people, like, there's background reasons that are why you're allowed to do some of these things, that are why they took advantage of it in the first place. But because each country has its own laws, there isn't the sort of international coordination that would be needed to crack down on this.
If you want to do business in Canada and you're a U.S. company, you have to actually incorporate and open a business account with a Canadian bank before they allow you to do it.
Yeah, that I understand, but it just seems
Right,
like people
so-
are just putting money in
But
bank
because of
accounts in
that,
the Caymans.
They are,
that's
but
the
that's 'cause
type of thing
okay,
that lets you own
Here's the thing.
banks in other
what
countries.
What they do is they
or
open
bank accounts in other countries.
So there are law firms, mostly, but some other types of businesses as well, that operate out of places like the Cayman Islands. And what all these companies do is they set up shell companies for people incorporated at their office location, like the actual address is that law office. And then that business is incorporated in the Cayman Islands or wherever. Now they can get a bank account there. They don't have, the reason they choose places like the Cayman Islands is because they don't have to disclose who actually owns the shell company. And now they can funnel in money from anywhere on the globe.
And they don't have to actually prove that they're operating.
Well, I mean, any company can have a bank account and do things with money, and they don't have
Why
to
would
like
the
do
Caymans
any
do
business.
anything like audit that?
Yeah, you don't have to.
No,
have
I'm asking.
They like all
then-
the money coming into the country.
You can do things with bank accounts as part of a company and like not have any real business operations. That's entirely allowed.
Yeah, no, it baffles me that people are allowed to come from other countries and just do this, and like,
I mean,
and it's like and no
It's
one
very profitable for the Caymans.
Yeah,
That's why
I
they value
guess.
it.
And like in the fact that like if the Caymans are owned by not owned, but if they're under I guess jurisdiction of the UK, like I guess maybe the
Sort of. They're part of the Commonwealth. They're an overseas possession. They
Oh,
they
so
don't
they
operate under they don't operate under exactly the same laws. So they get like a bunch of the benefits of being, part of the UK without actually really entirely being part of the UK.
they can make their own laws and like not have
Yeah.
So we should be seeing multiple ethics violations being filed against Wilbur Ross in a sane world. Let's see if that actually
do we
happens.
have a strong ethics office in the
No.
Okay.
No. That's why I said let's wait and
Walter
see.
Schaub's like he's off somewhere else now. I don't know where he's working for. I mean, he's great on Twitter, but
Oh, of course. He's amazing on Twitter. So lots to read there. Everyone should check out the Paradise Papers and keep following all the fun stuff that comes out there. We will make sure to send out a link to the Guardian's actual page there. Let's hope that something comes from all these fun revelations. Let's talk about more of Russia Trump revelations because they never end.
More this week.
Because it's true and they never end.
Yes, and I mean we didn't get any indictments this week. That was a little disappointing.
I thought we were setting up for like a weekly hit.
But I understand why, it takes a bit longer. They want to do it right and they're moving, cautiously. But we did get some very interesting information despite that.
We did.
Yeah, the interview that, a name that everyone should know by now, Natalia Veselnitskaya, did in Moscow. Quite a lengthy interview, in fact, in which she said that she is willing to testify to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They make her answers public. And also said that she went to the meeting with Trump Jr. at Trump Tower. They, the one with Kushner and Manafort and everyone.
Like 50 others,
Yeah.
just everybody.
Eventually, we're just going to discover that, we were there. And we're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Apparently. But no, every fucking one was there, apparently. But she said that she went to the meeting for the purpose of showing them that these major Democratic donors had evaded U.S. taxes, and she wanted to lobby against the Magnitsky Act. Well, that's great, but then she also said that, Trump was requesting financial documentation showing
Trump
that...
Jr.
Yes, Trump Jr. was requesting this documentation to show that these evaded tax dollars had gone to the Clinton campaign, and kind of suggested that maybe his father could review the Magnitsky Act if she provided them, which sounds suspiciously like the exact definition of quid pro quo.
Oh,
What?
is that like colluding?
I don't understand what you're talking about. What's the big deal? I just said it would help her out if she did something for me. Like, what is the big deal? I mean, I don't understand. It's a it's nothing burger.
Anyone would have done it.
Yeah, it was just a little. It's opposition research. Like, she asked me to do something. I said sure, but
I'll do something for you in exchange.
But I mean, like, you've got to do something first for me.
And then, of course, we find
yeah.
out that Rick Gates had a second passport that he did not disclose when he surrendered to law enforcement, and they found it 3 days later.
Apparently, it was like in processing or something at the time, so it makes sense that they didn't have it. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't tell them that he had it.
Right. So why are you hiding this one? What were you going to do with that one?
On Monday, Manafort was back in court to review the conditions of his bail.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And I was reading about what they were going to argue, what Manafort's lawyer was going to argue, and it was just like reading it was like
he's trying to argue he's not a flight risk.
But also, like, the rich live in such an alternate
Oh,
universe.
I know.
It
It's
was
insane.
and the fact that he's going through and he's like, we're willing to give up his Trump Tower condo. We're willing to put up $10 million of his own money. We're willing for him to only travel between his Virginia, Florida, and Washington D.C. home. Like, he's not a flight risk. He's everyone knows what he looks like. He has no access to it's like to like private jets. It's like blah, like all this stuff, and it's like. That's not. First of all, this isn't how conditional release is.
No.
Like, you can't just sit there and say, "Oh, we're willing to just travel this area." No, you're
Also-
not allowed to travel at all.
Also, the fact that we'll give up $28 million of assets. And it's like, but you have $60 million hidden on overseas. And if all of this is laundered money, like the government is alleging and seemingly has all of the proof to demonstrate, then all of those assets would be forfeit anyway.
And I'm pretty sure like most of his assets should be frozen.
Oh yeah, they should.
So it's like the fact that it's like you don't really even have any assets to put up right now because most of your assets should be frozen right now because it's like potential like evidence.
Yeah.
Also,
shouldn't they be filing, civil asset forfeiture stuff against all this property right about now?
that will probably come like as the trial goes on, but just like
yeah, because he's not poor. If he was poor, they'd already have it.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely, and they wouldn't even file charges against
they'd
him.
take it.
They would just take it, but
And
just
then
like,
charge them the property
But
itself.
what blew my mind was just reading his lawyer like telling. I forget what news article I read it on, but he was like basically giving this like interview, being like, we're willing to only travel this distance, and I'm like, that's not real life. Like, I mean, we've had clients in my office who get held for being poor, like homeless, like, and their only crime is that they stole change, and they're getting like bail revoked, and this guy is like. Oh, it's just
okay, I had 3 passports for reasons no one can explain, but I'm
It's
totally not a flight risk.
It's not a big deal, Judge. It's just a thing people have.
Man, although you have to wonder, like, does Rick Gates now feel kind of inadequate because he only had the 2 passports? Like,
It's like he probably is like sitting there, be like, he told me he isn't gonna get the 3rd one. And I was supposed to get the 3rd one first.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't gonna do it.
So yeah, there was
good
that.
times.
Then we had the analysis from the executive VP of Marketing Associates, Ben Kuntz. He had estimate based off of their experience and knowing how Facebook's advertising platform and targeting and lookalike audiences and all that works. They did an analysis and concluded that that Michigan, with its very small margin in the 2016 election, could have been swung by Facebook ads for as little as $42,800, which is disturbingly
In terms
small
of federal elections, that doesn't count. That's a rounding error.
Yeah, that's like zero. That's effectively $0.
What
They spent like $1 billion in this election. Like,
The DNC
each
was
side.
running, on $4 million a month.
Yeah.
It was the most expensive election in history. But what upsets me so much is that like we're that impressionable. Like we're that stupid as a nation that it takes this little to influence us.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. And also just that like it's the way that they can drill down to get carefully targeted audiences, and then the actual cost per impression is super cheap. So lots of people see the ad for the amount you pay, and so if you're just targeting the right group of dumbasses, then
Who do we see in TV right now and on the news talking about, maybe the influence and the problems and how Facebook might be problematic for society as a whole?
Well, that would depend. Are you talking about Al Franken, who gave a very interesting speech about that, or are you talking about the former head of Facebook?
The former co-founding president of Facebook, Mr. Sean Parker, everybody, is currently out there talking about the problems of Facebook, the problems basically down to nearly its existence.
And the fact that they blatantly knew about how it manipulates people's psychology when they were making it, and that was part of the plan.
Because the Facebook originally created because he wanted to get a vendetta over a woman.
Indeed.
So it's like a man created an entire conglomerate over spite, and we're surprised that it's spiteful?
I'm just surprised that the first president of that company, who made a huge fortune off of it, is out there stating, all these fun things about it that are very negative.
Yeah.
Because he has no skin in the game anymore. Like he's
but,
rich.
I mean, the fact
Normally,
that
they don't go after each other, though, at that point.
Usually they're like, oh, I got my money,
Normally,
I'm
they're
out.
just like, yeah, I'm going to go away now. I'm cool.
Well, Mark's still got a really stupid, hateful face. So I'm
He
sure.
does, he does,
And
he
he's
does.
pissed
Can't
off
blame anyone for holding it against him.
he's made a lot of people angry at him
for good reasons.
for Facebook.
I just want to see him once, in any photo during the day, wearing a purple shirt, just once, instead of the gray one. That is the only shirt he owns.
Apparently.
Just once.
At the same time, the Facebook president, I forgot his name already because it doesn't matter.
John Parker.
He goes out there and he's like, oh,
Of Napster fame.
Is it the same one?
Yeah, him and Sean Fanning were Napster.
Oh, that's so funny. I totally forgot Napster was a thing. And that's
You
another,
and everyone else.
that's another douchebag. And like, they're going out there being like, oh, we created this monster. We knew about it, but we didn't really know it was going to be a monster. Well, what do you think monster means?
Yeah. So $42,800, about all it could have taken to sway Michigan. So next time, maybe don't let that happen.
Or
I
maybe
don't know.
just give Michigan people the money.
Yeah.
And then
They could use it.
Directly, they
like,
could
because
definitely
they
use
could
it.
really use it.
Maybe in Flint for some pipes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifically Flint and like I think the Detroit
Although,
area.
I guess $42,800 is so little that it would almost just be insulting.
Yeah, it was enough to sway the federal election for the president of the United States, not enough
It wouldn't
to
even
replace the
pay-
pipes on one street.
Yeah,
in
it wouldn't
Flint.
even. It would replace the pipes to like 5 houses.
Yeah.
Not even. I wouldn't even
No,
bet like
two maybe.
if we're lucky because they're
Yeah.
charging out the butthole for all the water.
A place that I used to live, we had lead pipes. It had to use water filtration, and the landlord said it would cost him about $8,000 to replace the pipe to his house from the street. So if you're just covering from the street to the house,
There's 8 just per that. Then
Yeah.
you've got to still also do
and
that
that's
whole
then
street.
the actual street itself.
and those poor residents are still getting charged for water.
Yep, outlandish
Wonderful.
prices.
Oh, so it's like
So-
give them the 42,000.
So that's
But,
all
yes.
it took there in Michigan.
And then we got some more information about George Papadopoulos, finding out that, contrary to what the administration has been claiming, he repeatedly represented the Trump campaign, including at an event that was occurring during the RNC in Cleveland, the same town the RNC was occurring at. It was an American Jewish Committee panel on foreign policy titled Defining America's Role in Global Affairs, where he was sitting on a panel with 2 Republican representatives in Congress, Tom Marino and Ted Yoho, and where Bob Corker, Republican senator, gave the opening remarks. We also know now that he gave an interview as a Trump campaign official to the Russian Interfax news agency on September 6 weeks before the election. And in that interview, he said that Trump will, quote unquote, restore the trust between the U.S. and Russia. And that during the inauguration in January, he met with Israeli leaders as a foreign policy advisor for the Trump administration, and then was interviewed by the Jerusalem Post the next day and said, quote, "We are looking forward to ushering in a new relationship with all of Israel, including the historic Judea and Samaria," which is just a weird fucking thing to say. But the important thing here is that he was representing the Trump administration after the transition. This was inaugural. This is way after the campaign, way after they're saying, oh, he, attended that one meeting
He was
back
just a
in
coffee boy.
at that one meeting in March of 2016.
He was
And
a
here he
volunteer.
is,
He was-
almost a full year later, representing the Trump administration.
But he was low on the totem pole. He was volunteer.
Shouldn't someone tell the Israeli leaders that Trump cares so little about them that he sent the person that he's calling
Coffee
the
boy,
volunteer coffee
yeah.
boy to be the one to talk to them? I think
Dang.
they would be offended by
that
that.
does seem kind of rude.
But yeah, well, I mean, this is also the same person that while visiting Israel at a press conference tells the press and the people of Israel, oh, we were just in the Middle East. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know where. I bet you
Yeah, he has no idea what he's doing.
he has no idea what Israel is. Or
No,
like,
no.
He
Literally, the only thing I think I've ever heard him get right was his comments on the Wailing Wall and how he didn't need Benjamin Netanyahu there with him because that would be wrong.
Hey, there was that time he said, I might lie to you.
Oh yeah, that was true.
And I bet you Melania told him about that, the Wailing Wall.
Probably.
Because, like, I mean, Melania, like, she's a kind of a terrible person, but I have a feeling she probably reads.
Yeah. Or at least had an
Tries
education.
to, anyways.
Yeah, I think she was educated.
So we also now know, it was already, in the information that was released last week, but no one really picked it up for a couple days until Talking Points memo actually noted that the timeline in the Papadopoulos filings suddenly ends on July 22nd, 2016. Then there's some vague references to his efforts to connect up the Trump campaign with Russia, continuing through quote unquote mid-August. And then they don't detail anything again until August 1st, which either means that, there was
What was he doing for a few months there?
or they decided that, that information they aren't ready to make public yet. And there is something way more damning for someone in that.
Wait, are they saying between July 2016 to August
2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just
like
a few
several
months, but
but
there's a gap.
Yeah, and is
That's
it
just a couple of weeks then.
is it that he was up to something, or is it
No, he was probably in
No,
Russia.
there's August.
Yeah, if it's
In
July to
September.
August.
Yeah.
Are you saying? Oh no, no.
they mentioned
July to
mid-August
October.
being a
Okay,
thing.
you were saying August.
July to October.
Yeah, there was a mention of his efforts continuing through mid-August, but they don't detail anything between July 22nd and October 1st.
Yeah, so
They just make that vague
about
reference.
2
at one
months
point.
and a week there. Not the smallest of gaps there. I'm sure
No,
there's
and
a
a conspicuous
paper
time
trail there.
frame between the RNC, the convention, and until just before the general election.
Okay, look,
But of course, they have nothing to hide. They're just hiding
look.
it.
August is prime beach time. Okay, and sometimes September because sometimes
he was
summer-
on the beach trying to
so-
convince them to meet up
So
with
when
Russia.
you're trying to get
but-
your tan on to last all winter, like you sometimes you take a gap. That's all.
Me and my dad bod know all about beach time. All right,
Look,
seriously.
so I'm just saying. I mean, I've seen the pictures of him in the shades. He looks like a beach guy. Maybe he took some time off to tan up because if you want to get that deport brown going, you got to really stay in the sun.
Quite possibly. So
And also related,
moving on.
Yeah, related to him though. We talked about Joseph
Joseph
Mifsud.
Mifsud.
Well, he's disappeared now.
Oops.
It happened after one of his associates told CNN that Mifsud had repeatedly bragged about how Moscow had compromising material on the Clinton campaign back in spring 2016, which is exactly the opposite of what Mifsud was claiming in the media. And then that associate also told them that he'd been interviewed by the FBI. And then Mifsud said that Papadopoulos' claim was baloney and that, quote, I absolutely exclude the fact that I spoke of secrets regarding Hillary Clinton, end quote. And then last Thursday, he disappeared from the private university in Rome that he teaches and hasn't responded to any requests for comment since. Also, he's now been the London Academy of Diplomacy that he was president of is now defunct. His name's been deleted from the London Center of International Law Practice that he'd previously been connected to. He has ghosted everyone.
Or he's dead.
CNN said that there are some indications that he at least read some of their messages. Although whether it was actually him or, someone else on the account, who knows? But apparently someone at least has access, presumably him, and he's presumably, somewhere in a country with no extradition to the U.S.
Well, if he
That
was,
would be the right move on his part.
It's what I would probably be doing if I were in his
I
position.
mean, if his body will show up if he's dead because they're
yeah.
they're gonna want us to know.
Yeah, they'll be
That-
wanting to send a
when they do
message
that,
to anyone
it's
else.
a message. So yeah, definitely.
And then, of course,
Carter
the-
Page.
Oh,
This
boy.
guy.
What the shit is wrong with this guy?
Or what's-
Seriously.
Or maybe this is what right is.
I mean, I
I
can't.
really hope
I
that
almost
isn't
think
true.
he's trolling.
But,
Like this is like it's so dumb.
but, okay, so he
Have
testified.
you heard any of the people in Trump's campaign or anyone he's hired talk? He's right
okay.
on par with how dumb everyone is.
Except he's even dumber than they are because, they say dumb shit, but, this guy
They at least talk to a lawyer.
yeah, this guy doesn't even have a fucking lawyer. That's
He
how
goes
dumb
in,
he is.
He goes
Everyone
in front
else
of the Intelligence Committee without a lawyer.
and then there was
Who does that?
I mean, that entire transcript is just fucking insane. And the whole reason that transcript came out was because that was something he insisted upon. He was just going to threaten to invoke the Fifth Amendment on everything unless they published the transcript. And they were like, well, I guess you asked for it.
My Washington Post had an article headline. I think is one of my favorite is the paranoid Carter Page testimony. What the hell did I just read?
Right? And just every single part of this, and this is 240 pages, every single bit of it is just what the shit is this? At one point, there's this just unbelievable exchange between him and Congressman Adam Schiff.
Oh, multiples.
Yeah, but I mean, the one where he tries to invoke the Fifth Amendment. Specifically, Schiff asks him if he complied with a subpoena or if he invoked the Fifth Amendment. And Page replies, I invoked the Fifth Amendment, yes. And Schiff asks if that was communicated to the majority council and goes, yes, it was on an email. And then Schiff's like, okay, and Mr. Gowdy just asked you a couple questions and you acknowledged that you have relevant evidence in the form of emails. Page replies, I will be happy to provide those, yes. And Schiff is like, So it's your position that you can selectively invoke the Fifth Amendment to provide certain documents, but withhold other documents? And Page replies, Congressman Schiff, I want to help this committee in every way that I can. I just want to do that in a way that does not put me at jeopardy, both in the judicial system, as we've seen with Mr. Papadopoulos, but also with the extrajudicial punishment that I've been submitted to. After your interaction with Mr. Comey on March 20th, 2017, I did receive significant personal domestic terrorist threats to myself. And, of course, Schiff replies, Dr. Page, is it your position that you have a Fifth Amendment right to provide non-incriminating emails or documents to the committee, but withhold incriminating documents from the committee and selectively comply with the subpoena? To which Page is like, there are no incriminating. Nothing I have done is incriminating or even unethical in any way. The only thing, and of course, the Schiff has the obvious reply of, then, if you have nothing that's incriminating, then how are you invoking the Fifth Amendment? It's literally the right to avoid self-incrimination. Like, what possible basis do you have for the Fifth Amendment if you're saying that you didn't do anything illegal?
I think one of my favorite is between Gowdy and him, where Gowdy's asked him, he goes, Gowdy asked, did you discuss sanctions? Page, maybe in passing, as anyone here might discuss tax reform. Which is, that's...
Yeah, the Senate or the House totally talks about it in passing.
You know how, like, you just discuss treason on a cage with your totes BFFs?
Of course.
Hey, look. The House once in a while, maybe tax reform comes up. It's not like they actually discuss it. It's not like they got together and hammered out fucking legislation and then passed it after hours and hours of discussion.
Yeah.
He's admitting to doing the equivalent of that. What?
And so then Gowdy goes on to say, did you ever have any conversations that weren't in passing? Page, not that I can recall. I move very quickly, like a shark. I stop for no man. To the best of my knowledge, I have never had a conversation with anyone, because to me, a conversation is when you really say something deep that makes the other person think, and I haven't done that. No, I take that back. Never. Except, Gowdy. Know what? Page, once I think I had a deep conversation with a good friend who now works for the state-owned oil company. Oh.
Which, of course, state-owned by Russia.
And then Schiff asks, was that about the sale of Rosneft? And Page goes, look, I can't definitively say it wasn't.
I mean, let's just boggle for a second at the fact that he said something so insane that it made Trey Gowdy ask a meaningful follow-up question to get more information out of him. Wait, what? I don't understand. What are you even saying? And then he goes ahead and says exactly. You're like, did you just seriously say that? Now, okay, let's move beyond the fact that just the sheer stupidity of how he said everything and the amazingness of like the sorts of things he was admitting in the process, and just talk about what he actually admitted to. He testified that many Trump campaign aides and the national security team members knew that he was going to Russia after the hacking revelations and didn't try to stop him, and that he directly told Hope Hicks about the trip, that he reported to other Trump officials when he returned, that he was talking to Jeff Sessions,
which he also said that he never met, except when he did.
Right. And yes, he actually did say both of those things. Then there was the part where he admitted to meeting with Kremlin and Rosneft officials, including the head of investor relations for Rosneft, Andrei Baranov, in both July and December 2016. And materially, he admitted that he lied about both interactions to Congress, which, of course, is a crime. He admitted to discussing sanctions policy with them in July, but said he did not directly express support for lifting U.S. sanctions on Russia, whatever the fuck that means. He admitted that on July 7th, the Kremlin essentially asked him to carry a message to Trump saying that we strongly support you and want to work with you on policy. He admitted that he may have spoken with Baranov before traveling to Moscow. As Kayla said, he said they may have briefly mentioned the potential sale of a significant percentage of Rosneft in July, a sale that, of course, wasn't announced until December 2016. And that meeting between Carter Page and Baranov, in which that was discussed, was one of the most significant elements of the Steele dossier. The whole point of that meeting, according to the dossier, was that Trump would get the brokerage from the sale of a roughly 19% share of Rosneft in exchange for helping deal with Russia's sanctions. Well, he just admitted that he had that meeting, that maybe sanctions were discussed and that they may have mentioned the sale of Rosneft. He just confirmed basically the most damning thing in the dossier.
But he's
outright.
But he's a scholar, right?
He is a scholar.
Okay.
Of course.
I said that we should just talk about the actual revelations, but I think we need that quote because that one was just what?
So he called himself a scholar, I think about 300 times. And it starts off with Paige saying to Schiff, he goes, listen, you have to live your life. I went to a gathering of scholars at the New Economic School, and everyone I met there was a scholar. Although it would be fair to say that I greeted them, then I met them. I don't remember who any of them were. Some were lifelong friends.
He doesn't remember any of his lifelong friends.
So Schiff goes, what is a scholar? You keep describing yourself as a scholar, but I am not sure that word means what you think it means.
I feel like Schiff dropped the ball on missing the Inigo Montoya quote.
Right.
Yes.
And then Paige answers back, I would define scholar very loosely to include the Russian deputy prime minister, several senior officers of Russian energy companies, and also myself. But really, I only spoke to the man on the street.
I mean, why would you even bring that up as the example there? Who would you consider a scholar? Well, the deputy prime minister of Russia. Wait, what were we talking about again?
What is going on?
Wow, why did that pop into my head of all the positions to name?
You know how, like, Russian's parliament, all of their names? Because I sure do. I mean, I don't know that. I've never met them. Who's the man on the street? Hey, remember when I was yelling at you from outside the room?
I know, because I don't remember anyone I've ever met.
Never had a
Because I've
conversation.
never had a conversation. Because I've never made anyone have a thought.
Oh,
It's
I know.
reading it, I laughed most of the time, but still trying to think about the words that he said
But I also
it
laughed
gave me
so
headaches.
hard I was crying.
Yeah,
That this is
then,
reality.
to make it worse, the guy then goes out and gives all these interviews in the media, and again doesn't have a lawyer telling him what the shit is wrong with you. He just has everyone. I have to assume everyone around him saying what the shit is wrong with you, but not a lawyer. But then he keeps giving media interviews where he says damning things, and they're like, did he just say? Okay. And he goes in grinning and all confident and smarmy. It doesn't look like he doesn't seem to have any plan in mind. He doesn't seem to have some sort of goal behind this stuff. It's not like he's trying to just, get media coverage to keep himself from getting assassinated because he knows too much. Because if he was, he'd be going on looking terrified, not like he's walking in thinking he's hot shit and the smartest person in the room.
That smile, man.
Oh yeah, I mean that is a serial killer smile, but
It is.
And then they ask him not even that probing a question, and the smile freezes and his eyes shift back and forth as he desperately searches for an answer. But then he doesn't seem to realize that, hey, maybe that should make me think that I'm not the smartest person in the room. Because he then goes on and gives another interview doing exactly the same thing.
And
It's
then
mind-boggling.
dropping more nuggets that he didn't already say. So it's whoa, back it up. Because you said yesterday that you weren't there, but now you are there, and with documents.
Also, last time you said that, you were also under oath.
I mean, keep it up.
Yeah, I want him to keep talking. It's it's
by all means,
it's comedy
please,
gold.
Tell us more, Carter Page.
What? It's just so mind-boggling that people are this fucking dumb.
Right. How did they not already get caught?
And how have they been able to be the age that they are?
This is the sort of person that you don't expect this person to be pulling off white collar crime. You expect them to appear in some article about Florida man is arrested for shoplifting from Walmart by putting things on his head.
They're the Florida man of treason.
Yeah, seriously.
That's how dumb they are at doing treason.
I know Donald Trump was born and raised in New York, but he does have Mar-a-Lago and seems to spend an awful lot of time there. I think we can just now consider him officially, Florida man.
Because no one in the...
He is Florida man now.
He is, because no one in the New York elite actually liked him, and he never fit in.
No one in New York liked him, period. This is not just the elite. Everyone hates him.
But it's he's always was this fixture that everyone kind of made fun of. Why is he still here? Doesn't he know we don't like him?
Answer no. He only listens when he talks.
Because he has best words, all the words. the greatest words, and he's got a great memory. He'll
And a
point
great brain.
and he'll point to his head to show you how great his memory is.
Except for, that time in the Trump University deposition where there was that hilarious exchange where they're like, do you remember saying that? And he's like, I remember you saying I said that. I don't remember saying that. Did I say that?
What is this real life?
That is difficult to answer.
I mean, Carter Page talking is definitely a fantasy.
Yes.
It's like a weird LSD fantasy that I never knew that I was going to have because I've never tried LSD, but it sure the fuck feels like I'm tripping.
So Carter Page is talking up a storm, and it's hilarious, sad, scary, all of the above.
And incredibly incriminating.
Yeah, he literally keeps saying the most illegal things. Like, oh yeah, but I broke this law, I broke that. I lied to you guys, but it's cool.
Even though it's a crime to lie to you guys.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're cool. I'm gonna walk out and talk to the man on the street. You guys can stay here.
I'm gonna claim the Fifth Amendment, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to claim the thing that protects me from self-incriminating, although I did not do anything incriminating.
But also,
except all those things I admitted to that I apparently am unaware were incriminating.
But I'm also going to keep talking after I've invoked my Fifth Amendment right.
Also, here, do you guys want some documentation?
You want me to tell you that I also have documentation that I'm having a Fifth Amendment over?
I plead the Fifth, but if you want the emails, you can have them. I'm just not going to say it.
Some of the emails. I got some that you don't get.
That's if I have the emails, which I can't say that I have, which I definitely do. But if I don't...
So let's talk about the next fun one here.
Yeah.
So Trump
related.
hates CNN.
You may have noticed.
He has been pretty clear about this one. And while I dislike CNN most of the time, I don't think I hate them as much as Trump does.
And I suppose there are circumstances under which it might be reasonable to call CNN fake news because it isn't really.
Well, no, I wouldn't say
it's
fake
very
because
corporate
that's a loaded
slanted.
term. I would say it's punditry.
Well, the reason I would say that under the right circumstances it would be fair to describe it as fake news is not because the stories they cover are fake. It's that it's not really news. 90% of it is just sensationalist celebrities and bullshit.
Yeah, it's commentary. It's punditry.
It's not false. It's just meaningless.
Yeah, so I would just it's just
content free.
Yeah, I would call it content free a majority of the time because it's just people's opinions.
Under the right context, I would agree with fake news because it's not really news.
Right,
but
not Donald Trump's version of that.
He's saying fake news as in they're telling fake stories.
Yeah,
that's just dumb.
It's just one of those terms that you.
Yeah, no, it's so poisoned.
It is now loaded. So we have this merger where Time Warner and AT&T are trying to come together as a single, gigantic, humongous, $85 billion mega corporation, right?
Which is the last thing we need.
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen either. But we all know that Trump has basically publicly threatened, to mess with CNN,
including fairly recently,
and NBC.
Well, not as much as CNN. He specifically calls out CNN every time.
The DOJ, Trump's DOJ, the one where he put the people who are currently in power there, like Sessions and Rosenstein and all those.
You might remember Jeff Sessions' name from Carter Page's testimony.
yes, where he talked about the Russians with Jeff Sessions.
Who claimed in testimony that
the DOJ has decided to come up with this interesting stipulation that maybe the merger goes through if you get rid of the parent company that owns CNN, which is Turner Broadcasting. And a lot of people are now talking about the idea that that's Trump's hand. Let's hurt CNN and rip them out of this gigantic media merger. Now, of course, AT&T is saying, what's wrong with you? There's no way we can do that because this, Turner Broadcasting not only includes CNN, but it has TBS, TNT, and TNT, of course, which has the NBA games. I mean, there's so much more value in Turner for them that there's no way they're getting rid of Turner. And so now we see what looks like Trump's hand finally giving the punishment that he thinks they deserve by killing this merger.
Yes, but he's also so dumb that he thinks that they'll just do it. Instead of just not merging and then waiting until his impeachment and then trying to merge again.
Yeah. But, I mean, okay, so, yeah, this merger is kind of shit. I am not a fan of this kind of corporate consolidation. Quite frankly, I'm not a fan of the idea of corporate-owned and funded news agencies because they are shit inherently.
Oh,
They
yeah.
are only going to they're only going to cover stories that the network sponsors and advertisers are okay with them covering.
Not to mention it hurts the consumer because now you have one company owning everything, and now like you've got DirecTV like on part of this, so it's like if there's any like clash, they can completely drop channels.
Exactly.
And they've done it in the past. And I mean, I would love to see the merger fail just because it's a shitty merger.
And I'm just generally against this kind of corporate-owned media, except for the problem that, for the most part, the news isn't profitable at all. So if it's not owned by a corporation with some other interest in running it like this, then the only people that can afford to run it are billionaires who run it as vanity projects and can just make it even worse by being just their personal narrative.
And they've also proven that they shut down news entities when they do something they don't like DNA Info and Gothamist.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And
out of nowhere.
And we
no, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was 2 weeks after they unionized.
and
Oh, yeah,
yes.
but for the people, they did not know that it was happening. Just suddenly, the homepage changed to a page saying it had happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know what it looks like when these billionaires own the media because, well, it happens all the fucking time.
Yeah, the Sinclair...
Sinclair Media Group.
which forces all of their affiliates to broadcast, editorials.
Stories, and they don't list that they're being pushed by the corporate headquarters, so it looks like they're from local papers.
No, well, yeah, no. When they run them, they look like from locals,
yeah.
except it's mandatory that they
Yes,
all have to
it's
run
not
it.
optional, but it looks like it's just another op-ed in your local paper, but your local paper is owned by Sinclair, who forced them to run it. And forced every one of their papers to run it.
So is this one of those weird times where, through Trump's petty assholishness and total reckless nature of running the presidency might at least get us an outcome we want, which is this merger not happening?
He's done it already. He's his trying to sabotage healthcare has increased over 100%. I think they had an increase of 179% insurance signups in the first week of an open enrollment this year because of what Trump had done.
And then Maine, right?
Oh, well, they just voted by ballot because they hate LePage.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, who doesn't? People that don't know who
So
Paul
they've joined
LePage is.
the expansion through
they
the
were
people's
like,
ballot.
fuck you,
popular vote.
LePage. We're going to do shit our way.
And what's funny about that is, so they voted by ballot, and then the legislature actually has to make it law because the people said so.
Well, no, in their constitution, it says anything voted by a majority of the people goes into effect 45 days from that vote. It's in the main constitution.
Correct, but what's funny is that happened with the ranked choice voting, and they're still fighting it and trying to find ways to make it not happen. And
Also medical marijuana.
And the medical marijuana.
Or not medical marijuana, decriminalization.
Decriminalization. So the ballot measure has actually twice now been stalled well past the 45 days. But what's happening is they're trying to now the legislature is trying to pass laws that will make it illegal for them to implement what happened on the ballot measure, giving them kind of a back channel way. And here's where that's interesting in Maine. Maine is a state that has the people's veto. If you can get 60,000 signatures, you can, as a public, bring a measure where the people vote on a ballot of whether they are vetoing a law that the legislation passed.
I thought Maine is the most progressive state.
Right?
Kind of interesting, huh?
One of 2 states that doesn't disenfranchise incarcerated votes. Voted to put ranked choice voted in for all of their elections, and now voted to expand Medicaid. Good job, Maine. But I mean, but that's this is an accident Trump created.
Also, they do have. I believe the situation in Maine was they were trying to actually legalize marijuana. They already have it decriminalized, but for a state that has it decriminalized, you can possess 2.5 ounces or something. It's double what other states usually allow.
Right.
So, another way in which they're relatively progressive.
Yeah. No, but it's
Kinda
just
crazy.
But yeah.
And they elected Paul LePage twice.
So here we are with the DOJ trying to stop this merger.
And he's going to accidentally do an actual good thing.
He might accidentally do another good thing. It's a
Weirdly
miracle.
enough.
So we'll see what happens there.
I think Merge is going to go through eventually. It's just a matter of
They're
how.
going to find a way to
sooner
make
or
it
later
happen.
it'll happen.
I mean, it is interesting that it's more of a vertical merger than necessarily like two actual competitors. Like, you don't consider these two direct competitors. It's more AT&T and DirecTV, which are now the same company, are the distribution platform. And Turner and all these others like HBO, Warner Brothers that are all owned on the other side are all the content creators. And they've already allowed this to happen before with the Comcast and NBC Universal merger. So it's not a thing that we think they want to stop for any other reason than Trump being petty right now.
Which is too bad because it really wasn't something we wanted happening. But
Comcast NBC was definitely a bad idea. Let's move on to, let's just move to Virginia. Can we do that? Can we just move on to the 2017 elections?
Like, are you saying we should like move to Virginia?
Why not? That's where everyone that we want is going into power, right?
Have you been to Virginia?
That's a good question.
Many times.
Because it's still below the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
It might be. But there's some specific little areas you can go to, like Sterling, and
yeah, no,
right outside of DC. There,
a lot of great people in Virginia, and they all voted on Tuesday.
Yes, we can tell.
Yes, that was quite remarkable. I mean, it wasn't just Virginia where we had some remarkable news, but Virginia
we crushed it in all sorts of elections.
Oh yeah,
and by we I mean the people that voted.
Right. Let's start with Virginia.
Yeah, I am not a Democrat.
No.
I'm not a Republican. I think they both suck. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably most of the time go with the Democrat.
It seems like a pretty easy choice, if only because one of them is just that bad.
Yeah. Just enough worse.
I didn't even mention a party. I just said we the people.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not in disagreement with that assessment. So anyway, of course, the Democrats won with Northam, the Virginia governorship, by almost 9 points, which is a pretty considerable increase over how much Hillary won the presidential election by there.
And way larger than they were polling. They were only 3 points up on the polls.
Oh, yeah. But the funny thing is, like, not a lot of like media or like even the podcasts I listen to, like the political, like, lefty podcasts, not even they were like really focusing on this like election. And I thought, and like when I finally actually heard about Northam and his platform and what he wanted to implement, I was like, why aren't we talking about this? Like, these are like, he had some really great ideas, and to find out that like
Gillespie can go.
Well, I mean, he could go fuck himself.
But, exactly.
And but like, so Chris Christie's lieutenant governor was running for governor, and I was like, holy shit! If we lose to Chris Christie's lieutenant governor, like
give up.
We are just
give up.
Yeah, we should just quit.
Yeah.
All of us.
But
won the governor's races in both New Jersey and Virginia.
And in New Jersey, it was by over 13 points.
And in Virginia, it was 3 state-level seats taken from Republicans, which was the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general.
Democrats already had the governor. It was Tim.
Yeah, we had Terry McAuliffe.
McAuliffe.
Yes. And but I thought we took over 13 House seats.
13 of their seats, but there's still 5 that are in the middle of recount. And if enough of those come over and it hits 17, then the Democrats take the majority.
Yeah, but we did. I heard we definitely
13 are known.
Yeah, so
5 are up in the air,
which is great. That is a great.
It takes away a supermajority.
Yeah, the Republicans had an actual supermajority, 66-34 in the Virginia House of Delegates, which of course is their House of Representatives. And now it's assuming that none of the recounts flip anything. It's 51-49, and all 5 of the ones that might be recounted at the moment are currently held by Republicans.
Some of them are within 150 votes, I believe, so it's
some
pretty
of them
close.
are within 100.
I saw something on Twitter that Virginia got rid of their electronic ballots for this one, and then put in paper ballots.
I do not know on that. I did not see anything to that on that.
I saw it on Twitter, so I'm going to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting if that is come to find out if that is true, because that's kind of saying something. Like, until we can like get our electronic shit under wraps, like maybe we should continue with the paper.
None of the companies making the electronic stuff currently give a shit about security.
That's what I'm. Yeah, so it's like
every one of them currently available for anyone to get their hands on was taken down to the DEF CON hacker.
I have a lot of scrap paper in my house. And I will donate it to paper ballots.
The hackers broke into all of them.
Yeah,
all of them.
People that had almost no experience could break into them in seconds.
Yeah. A couple of them took like 5 minutes.
Okay, up to 5 minutes for people with no actual skills at this.
So also in Virginia, and I was watching, these results come in and watching the interviews as they happen. We have Danica Rome, 33-year-old trans woman who defeats Bob Marshall. And Bob Marshall, of course, the openly homophobic person who
actually called himself the chief homophobe.
He did. That's why I say openly homophobic.
He used the word
He
himself.
Drafted the bathroom bill
for Virginia.
there.
The one that didn't go through.
And so Danica Rome there beats him. And what I found just amazing watching that happen is not the fact of the bathroom bill, not the fact of her being trans, none of that. It was her response afterwards. She went on and did an interview literally right after the announcement was made on TV, and it was by phone, so they were just showing a montage of pictures. But she said, when asked about the bathroom bill and about his homophobia, that she was not going to talk bad about him because he was now one of her constituents, and she's not one of the politicians who does that to her constituents. And she went on to talk about, no, I'm not here to talk bad about the person who just lost. In fact, I'm hoping to, talk to him about, condolences. And then she went on to talk about, infrastructure, my people, my delegates.
Specifically issues relating to her district.
And completely ignored the sensationalism and said she wished people would stop focusing on that.
She's also said that, where she sees herself in 10 years is this same office. She doesn't want higher office. She is a policy wonk who is super focused on the specific local issues, and that's what she cares about, and that's why she wants this specific seat.
And it's amazing. I mean, this is a great win.
I mean, people need to understand there's a very famous saying that all politics is local, and this is a fantastic demonstration of that. She focused on issues that were of specific local interest and didn't focus on these social issues at all. She let that guy be a jackass in front of everyone and refused to debate her and call her a man and all this shit like that, and ignored all that crap and just talked about the issues that mattered to people, and she won. She crushed it.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, it's him creating the bathroom bill and and just focusing on that one bill, is just stigmatizing the whole what it's about. And I just love that it's a just dessert, just seeing her take it over, because she's someone now that is going to get in there and actually do the job that he hasn't been doing because he's too busy focusing on other people's genitals that aren't his own.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned just desserts, because there were a couple of other races that had some of that, but we'll get to those in a bit when I think we should finish talking about Virginia first, because there were a couple of other really interesting results in Virginia. First of all, Elizabeth Guzman and Hala Ayala both defeated incumbent Republicans to become the state's first Latina delegates. Kathy Tran won an open seat to become the first female Asian American delegate in Virginia. Dawn Adams became the state's first openly lesbian candidate elected to the House of Delegates. And the one that I think might just
one
be
of my
the most
favorites,
interesting of all, is that there was a man by the name of Lee Carter, a self-described Democratic socialist, who managed to defeat the Virginia's House Majority Whip, Jackson Miller, a Republican. And he did this essentially without any party backing. In fact, they pretty much actively tried to avoid discussing him and talked up how much of a strong candidate Miller was, in terms of an opponent and how hard he would be to beat. And the reason that this happened was because, originally Carter was going to get backing from the Democrats, but it turns out they required daily reports on all of your activities, like how many people you phone banked and how much money you raised and all that. And, he says he ceased reporting to them because there were multiple information security lapses where confidential information that was reported to the House caucus was leaked outside the party infrastructure. And that he also was a little uncomfortable because in exchange for the money that they were offering in terms of funding, they wanted a bit more editorial control over the messaging than he was comfortable with.
And Democrats suck at messaging.
Right?
We are the
why
worst.
would you want to
we are the worst at messaging.
So
he
guy
walked away from the party and did it himself.
And beat
and
one
won.
of the senior most Republicans in the state.
Good.
Fuck yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
well done, that man.
It's kind of funny because it's just goes to show that sometimes the the House party like does not like Lisa Murkowski did the same thing. She
Yeah.
lost her primary
Yep, and then ran
won
anyway.
as a write-in independent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's-
right in. Well, I mean, Alaska's kind of a special case, but
I mean, like, it
yes.
still goes to show that,
Yeah,
like, when
yeah.
you can control your narrative, like, you have a better say of, like, your outcome.
Absolutely. And that, people that understand the local position and what issues matter to people can, like, sometimes you need to listen to those people.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure Lee Carter, like, went, like, physically door to door. Like,
Oh,
had
yeah. There's
talked
no
to-
way that wasn't.
Yeah, and, like, talked to, like, every single person in his, like, that district and, like, got to know every single person and their needs and wants. And it's, like, when you have someone, like, putting, like, that much work into it, like, there's really no reason not to vote for a person like that.
And I mean, he's a very interesting person as well. He was disabled and got into like labor rights because of his own disability. And then he came out and specifically called himself a democratic socialist and was like, yeah, they're going to call me a socialist anyway, so you might as well just own it.
Yeah.
Fuck it. He also said that he was very far to the left of the Democratic Virginia Party, and that was part of the reason that, he wasn't like 100% on board with their editorial control over the messaging.
Oh, I wouldn't be as like kind of like I like to stay to the left. Sometimes like I go back and forth on certain issues because like sometimes you just something else happens and you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this now.
Sure.
But I wouldn't want like our current Democratic Party to have any
Right?
messaging. We suck at messaging.
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
reason why we call it the Democratic machine, because you say three words, like you take the words Democratic Socialist and you put it through the Democratic machine, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm far center to the left, a little bit further left than other people, and sometimes I
I'm
have
a little bit further left than some people.
and,
Some
like,
people.
I mean,
A few.
I wouldn't necessarily
One or
call
two.
myself a socialist. I like social issues, and it's like you have this paragraph where it's like, no, 2 words. That's all we needed.
But there were lots of other interesting races.
A lot of firsts, and like
a lot of them.
I was so inspired reading about all the firsts, because it's like some of these like like the Hoboken in New Jersey.
Yeah, the first Sikh
Ravi.
mayor.
I'm gonna butcher his last name. Sorry, Bahala. Yeah, but he
Bala.
he was targeted with some seriously racist
Oh,
ads,
yeah.
and like just violent ads
And there
too.
were some seriously racist ads in Edison, New Jersey about the school board, and then both of those candidates won as well.
Yeah, and we had multiple first openly transgender elected officials now, and in the Pennsylvania, what was it? Their
Erie School Board?
school board, but they also voted for a prosecutor.
Oh yeah, down in Philadelphia, the guy that
That's
won.
my favorite one, Larry Krasner.
Yeah,
I
he's
love
a
this.
civil rights attorney in Pennsylvania who's represented Black Lives Matter, Occupy Philly. He sued the Philly Police Department and City Hall more than 75 times and promised never to pursue the death penalty. And he won by like 3-1. Seriously, it was like
He
70%.
won the race for district attorney
for
in
Philadelphia.
Oh,
Philadelphia.
it's district
Yes.
attorney. Okay.
Yeah.
No, and like reading those was like, it was so inspiring, and it just like also like we had
Collins up in Montana, the first black mayor in Montana, and a refugee from Liberia.
Oh,
Also,
yeah.
like pretty progressive dude. See him? That's pretty fucking awesome.
And then you had even in New Hampshire, where it's like you don't even think about New Hampshire like needing firsts anymore. Well, I mean, like
Well,
I'm sure that
first black person ever to visit New Hampshire.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but it's like
You get Joyce Craig, first female mayor of
Manchester.
Manchester. Yeah.
Right over in Nashua, right and practically next door, Shoshana Kelly, the first woman of color elected as a city alderman there.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so it's like the fact that we had so many firsts for once.
I think Ashley Bennett was amazing too,
Yeah,
though,
that was
in
one
Atlantic
of the
County, New
other
Jersey.
justice ones.
Because this one is totally justice. She ran against John Carmen, and she ran against him after he shared a meme online asking if the Women's March in Washington, D.C. would be over in time for them to cook dinner.
I remember
And
that.
she
too.
decided to run against him.
She was a first-time candidate, had never run for any office before. And like that was the thing that prompted her to run specifically against him.
And she won.
Yes.
Yeah, because fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
Make your own goddamn dinner now.
I also liked former TV anchor Chris Hurst. His girlfriend was fatally shot on live TV a couple of years back. Kind of made the news at the time. Ran against an NRA back candidate and also won.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
it was an amazing election
It
night.
really was.
that election was supposed to be what we were supposed to feel 2016 for women, and honest, I mean, it's been a shitty fucking year.
Yeah.
Yes, but
But
that
it
was
has.
amazing,
That
right?
was
But that was
fantastic.
a fantastic election
It
night,
really
and
was.
it really and it made me proud that because apparently the numbers too, like all the numbers of first-time voters
Oh yeah.
was huge. Millennial from like what 18 to I think 35 was like there was a huge surge.
Yep. And I saw a breakdown for voter turnout in Virginia, at least, and man, just there were gains across the board for Democrats. Every single demographic.
Do you want to know why? Because a lot of there was there was over like 100,000 first-time voters because Terry McAuliffe had to pardon every single person individually because he originally wanted to do it as a blanket sweep, and the supermajority said, no, you can't do that, and passed a law that forbade him from doing that. He had to do it. You can't just do a blanket pardon. So he said, fine, I'll pardon them all one by one. So single-handedly signed off physically every single person's pardon so they could vote for the first
reinstate
time.
the voting rights for all the felons that had served their time.
Amazing. Amazing.
And also, one special election in Washington managed to result in the Democrats taking over the last state legislature on the West Coast that they didn't control. They now control the governor's mansion and both state legislative bodies for every state, or all the West Coast states in the continental U.S. It's only 3, but still.
Still, I mean, this is all good news for the country, and
Speaking of,
in continuing Republicans leaving office news,
Yes.
this time by choice, we have multiple Republicans who have retired
one of those,
or announced retirement.
I think one of those requires a little bit of special mention.
Lamar Smith.
Yes. The dickbag extraordinaire from Texas, who is the chair of the House Science Committee, but is a climate change denier, is responsible for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, SOPA, and if anyone remembers the Protecting Children from Internet Pornographers, aka the government takes all of everyone's information forever.
They gave it a scary name because they thought that would help it pass. But it had nothing to do with that.
Amazingly, somehow that one didn't pass.
That one and SOPA didn't pass, but we did get the DMCA,
Yes.
which is used as a tool of abuse by many lawyers.
Because
yes.
piracy is not a victimless crime.
Indeed.
So Lamar Smith has been a shitbag in Congress for quite a long time and represents a fairly gerrymandered section of Texas that covers parts of San Antonio and Austin, and yet still has a partisan voting index 11 points in favor of Republicans.
Oh yeah, because they broke Austin up.
Hacking and cracking.
They
Indeed.
minced it. They
Oh,
minced it because
Austin doesn't have a single
Is
district of
Austin
its
like
own.
a fruit salad?
No. So what they did is
No, that would be Roy
Austin
Moore.
was the
That was
only
Roy Moore, yes.
only county in the second George Bush W election that voted against W.
Yep.
So Texas was like,
You don't get your own representative.
fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then they minced him up.
So yeah, we got
Lamar's gone.
Yep. He was one of 3 Republicans from Texas to announce their retirements this week.
Ted Poe and Jeb
I like-
Hensarling.
Well, I like your description of Tadpo because it's such a generic name for the old generic Republican dickbag.
Yeah, well, I mean, unlike Lamar Smith and Jeb Hensarling and Bob Goodlatte, the other one, that one's from Virginia, unlike the other ones that retired this week, there isn't really anything outstandingly dickbaggish about him. He's just really your generic Republican dickbag. He's awful in all the ways you'd expect a Republican to be, but he's not outstandingly awful and doesn't hold any particularly exceptional thing like chair of the House Science Committee or chair of the House Financial Services Committee, which is what Jeb Hensarling currently holds, or chair of the House Judiciary Committee, which is what Bob Goodlatte holds.
That is interesting that 3 chairs of big committees are
Important
retiring.
ones. And
Yeah,
Jeb
the Judiciary Committee, the Financial Services Committee, and the Science Committee are all losing their Republican chairs.
and interestingly, Jeb
Good, because the Judiciary Committee is where we get the impeachment happenings.
Yes. And now Jeb Hensarling, in addition to being chair of the House Financial Services Committee, is very closely tied to Wall Street. Pick a major Wall Street bank. He has donations from them. He also gets all the donations from payday lenders. So he's a bad human being. Bob Goodlatte, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, and is also kind of outstandingly bad. He was one of the original sponsors for SOPA. He tried to
The Net Act is the one that pissed me off the most.
Oh yeah, that was back in '97, and that was the one that was the
That was
law.
a great year. That was a great year. Spice Girls were happening.
It removed the requirement of financial gain in order to criminally prosecute copyright infringement. So before that, you had to actually profit off of it, and now you don't. You can get just for having infringed. He also tried to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics back at the beginning of this year. So, he this is why,
So
Ted Poe is just a generic dickbag.
Not only are all the Republicans losing elections, but they're also just quitting in like amazing numbers for ones of that power at the same time.
They're jumping ship because they're all scared little girls.
And the impressive part is, you look at these guys, every one of those districts has a Cook partisan voting index greater than a 10-point bias in favor of Republicans. The smallest one is 10, and that's Lamar Smith, who is a longtime incumbent. I mean, these guys are all longtime incumbents, but yeah, the like Republican bias of 10 points, 11 points, 16 points, and 13 points. These are not districts where they're like, under normal circumstances, they would be anywhere afraid of having someone coming in and kicking them out.
No, because they're not afraid of losing their seat to a Democrat. They're afraid of losing their seat to a worse conservative. Yes. And with the Bannon train and the Kochs and the Mercers, they know exactly that they can get unseated by someone who's more like what Kochs pay for.
And the fact that like people this awful are concerned about that is really just kind of disturbing.
But that also means that, we're going to get worse, and we've seen what those worse get. We just saw it in Virginia.
Yes.
They don't get elected.
Well, most of the time at least, and hopefully more and more often they won't be.
So let's move on to a pedophile.
Yes.
And by that I mean Roy Moore.
I was hoping we would end on good news tonight, but
turns out
we've had too much good news this week. We can't have any more.
Turns out that Roy Moore has been accused of a sexual encounter with a 14-year-old.
Multiple.
When he was 32 years old. And, oh yes, of course, multiple other women have come out now since then.
Well, actually, what happened was they didn't come out. There was an investigation by, I believe, the Washington Post.
Yay, journalism.
Found them and managed to talk to them and get them to tell their stories. And they weren't like people that were looking to come forward. The Washington Post heard from someone who had heard about the story.
Yeah, they were tipped off, and they were asked to look into it.
Yeah, and they had to convince the women to be willing to tell their stories. Because they were like, I don't want to come out and get involved. Like, it was a long time ago now. Look,
Annie's a fucking weirdo.
So we're talking about a 14-year-old, we're talking about 16-year-olds, we're talking about 18-year-olds, all of these while he was in his 30s.
And I mean, things like the 14-year-old says that she was approached by him while she was outside a courtroom in Etowah County, Alabama, sitting on a wooden bench next to his mother and
next to her mother.
Sorry. And he offered to watch her while the mother went into court for her child custody case. And he said, the mother says that he said, "Oh, you don't want her to go in there and hear all that. I'll stay out here with her." And she thought it was a nice gesture at the time. But then, he asked for her phone number and picked her up for a date one day and drove 30 minutes into the woods where he said she was pretty and kissed her. On a second visit, she says he took her shirt and pants and removed his clothes over her bra and underpants and guided her hand to touch him over her underwear.
Oh, stop. I can't. I just, it's fucking gross.
Well, that's what she was thinking, because she says she was thinking at that moment, I wanted it over with, I want it out. And she was thinking, quote, "Please just get this over with. Whatever this is, just get it over."
Like, it sucks because this is not going to do anything to him. He's not going to, he's probably not going to lose any votes over this because he's a fucking,
Well, I'll tell you, the Republican Party all over the news today.
They're still funding his campaign. Yeah. He was removed from this.
They've been very public about, if these allegations are true, this is horrible.
But they're still going to fund his campaign. They're still going to stump for him because that's what they do. And he was removed from the Alabama Supreme Court twice for being a shitbag, and he's also given some really creepy dissenting opinions on pedophilia and rape.
And
Yes.
then that's not
On
even getting
multiple
into...
of these, he was actually plying the women with the girls, I should say, because they were all
If you're
young.
underage, 18, and you're talking about sexual assault,
Yes.
they're girls.
And he
Definitely.
was plying them all with alcohol while they were under the age, the drinking age.
And, okay, I want to point out what is possibly the most bizarre of like the details here. One of them says she was 14 and was working as a Santa's helper at the Gadsden Mall when he first approached her, and she was 16 when he asked her on dates that her mother forbade. Like, who the fuck sees a child working as Santa's helper at the fucking mall and goes, I hit that.
A predator, a sexual predator
Yeah.
goes to malls to pick up girls.
Oh, and just to point out, people might say there's no, proof, and of course it's very hard to prove something that happened 35 years ago. But it turns out that the one that was approached at the courthouse, well, she described her story consistently in a bunch of different interviews, and then the Post did some research and found out that in fact her mother did attend a hearing at the courthouse in February 1979 related to divorce, and that Roy Moore had an office just down the hall at the time.
Little helpful information there.
I mean, this guy shouldn't be qualified, should be allowed to run for elected office after being removed from the bench twice. The fact that he is, it's disgusting. The fact that he's also a predator, is more disgusting because it's really not going to do anything.
And mind you, this piece of shit is on video saying that he thinks that homosexuality should be illegal.
Yeah, he compared homosexuality to child abuse and molestation. But
that doesn't make sense because he's okay with one of those.
Yeah, because he's the I just want him. I think he should be. I'm not going to.
I think he should be in jail.
To be in jail. Yes.
Jail is a good place.
Because then you don't have to say what you think should happen to him. Because people like that go into jail don't have a fun time.
Yeah,
they have a bad time of it.
But
Gonna have a bad time if you pizza when you should have French fried.
now I just want pizza and French fries.
So Roy Moore is getting run through the ringer, and I hope this ends his run for any offices.
Yeah, anyone that's down there in
I hope this
Alabama, you've
ruins
got
his
an
life
election
forever.
coming up.
I want him to be shamed into just being eliminated off the earth. Like he should just find a hole and go into it and then never come out.
That seems reasonable.
Okay, so now get prepared for Kayla to yell.
Oh no, I'm leaving because I'm hungry and it's it's so late.
Hillary Clinton, the horrible, horrible human being that she is, and
my
her
God.
campaign being the horrible people that they are, is all getting exposed now. More of it's getting exposed anyways by Donna
it was
Brazil.
already public, just
Because we knew all the stuff from Wasserman Schultz and all the emails.
But
And the
let's
funding
start
stuff.
talking about it 5 days before an election.
Yeah, which went great.
that went pretty well, honestly.
I think we should do
of
more
that.
of this. I think
People
trash
might
talking
have-
Hillary seems to lead to the
honestly,
Democrats actually winning.
Maybe people have more faith in the Democratic Party when people are actually willing to talk about its flaws and, actually.
we can
and the
talk about-
horrible
but we
people
can
that
talk
were
about
in control of it.
but
Oh,
we
wait,
can-
I mean are in control of it.
We can talk about flaws, but we don't always have to talk about it being Hillary's fault.
Okay,
But except
well,
this one
I mean,
specifically was.
It's not
Yeah.
entirely her fault.
Sure, she was taking
Her
advantage of a
campaign was
lot of
doing all of
shitty
this.
things that, in many cases, were similar to, or even identical to, in some cases, things that have been done in the past. Absolutely, that they were still awful, and she did them, and her campaign did them,
And we
did
call
them
out
worse
all
than
the other
pretty much
people who
anyone
do it
else.
here without anyone giving a shit for calling them all out for it, but then we're calling her out for the same thing that we call everyone else
We've never called
for.
out the RNC's financial innards because we don't even have them.
Yeah, and as soon as we have that information, we will talk about that
Oh,
on the show.
absolutely.
No, but
We'll have like 3 weeks of that.
And
shit.
you'll be fire and fury.
No, because I wouldn't if an RNC wanted to stagger their party to support one candidate.
If the RNC had done what the DNC had done, we wouldn't have ended up with Trump as their candidate. I guess
I think they tried, and because their original.
So are you saying they're not corrupt enough?
No, they're just not good enough with their money. But because they originally wanted Jeb.
All the money that they have versus the bankrupt Democratic Party.
Well, no, because
they have way more fundraising than-
their chosen candidate was Jeb.
Oh yeah, I mean
And
obviously.
so it's like,
Yeah, but the Republican Party doesn't have the structure that the Democratic Party does.
all that energy he brought to the stage really helped sell that.
I know, but like I truly believe that they probably did all of their finances and what they could have power of if trying to control.
But
Jebs.
they don't.
It didn't work for them.
The way the parties are structured is substantially different. For example, like when the Democrats did their last set of reforms in how the primaries are run back in the 70s after the whole thing with McGovern, or just before that actually, after the 68 election, they set up a system that's very different from how the Republicans have. That's why the Democrats still have the superdelegates. There are no superdelegates in the Republican Party. Just they structured the two parties differently because of the different pressures on them at the time they did their last reforms. The Democrats are still, in a lot of ways, closer to that smoke-filled room than the Republicans are, which, you know, is bad when the Republicans have a multi-decade campaign of systematically misinforming people and getting them to believe absolute bullshit and not even be able to recognize reality when it's in their face, and then they vote for people like Trump. Yeah, that's really bad, and it's the Republicans' fucking fault because of all the shit they were doing. But they couldn't stop it because they didn't have the mechanisms in the party in place to do that anymore, whereas the Democrats do.
Democrats did not reform a lot of things that, you know, for some strange reason, the Republicans actually did a long time ago.
Yeah, it's just a weird quirk of history. I'm not saying that, you know, the Republicans are in any way better people, because if they had had the choice, they absolutely would have done the same.
I mean,
absolutely.
I just think that like the conversation around this topic is being completely bastardized in the wrong way.
Oh, I agree that in the media, it's been poisoned to shit by people like doing wild allegations on both sides against. Like, on the one hand, you have people saying that, you know, this is proof that they changed votes. And you're like, what? And on the other hand, you have people like, Donna Brazile is being paid by the Russians. And you're like, what?
I do think Donna Brazile is being possessed by the Upside Down because she went on Tucker Carlson. Girl,
that's a bit
girl,
odd.
I have some questions.
She's done a lot of like,
and she's clearly upset about something because of the way she's talking about on George Stephanov's show on This Week. She's clearly mad about something. And that's fine. I'm not going to like...
She's mad about all the corruption inside of the DNC that was led by Hillary's campaign, who took control of the DNC.
I think it's a little bit more personal.
I actually agree. I think that she was concerned about that. But let's face it, we know that she sanitized her story a bit. We know that there were some parts where it would have made her look bad if she admitted the truth, but it's in the public. Like, she was the one telling Hillary, you know, go down to these red states, campaign there. She was part of the problem.
Yeah,
that's public knowledge.
Yeah.
So she sanitized her story a bit to make herself look better.
But also, like, she's clearly mad at something or someone for something.
But if you want to see how Hillary's team actually stole the nomination from, you know, anyone else.
So here's my issue with that verbiage, because those are loaded terms.
I wouldn't use
I think the conversation should
I would.
I think,
they literally took control of the DNC
so hear me out. I think the conversation should be, we have a transparency problem in the DNC. We've got some issues that we clearly need to reform and we need to address and we need to take control of and account of. And we need to make sure that this never happens again. Instead of, Hillary stole the election, she's an evil corporate monster. It's like,
but those statements are true also.
But we can have...
we don't have to just harp on them, but they're true.
But we can have the conversation of, there is a transparency problem, there's a financial problem, but we don't always need to make this Hillary versus Bernie argument.
I agree with you on that. The problem is that when she tried to talk about the
I'm making it Hillary versus the voters.
See, stop doing it. Just make it the DNC has a problem and we need to move on. Because if we don't, we're just going to keep going back into the same conversations, the same arguments.
I agree, but the problem that I see is that Donna Brazile came out and explained the problems that she saw initially. That was the first article she wrote was talking about, you know, so, you know, when I was put in as interim chair, I told Bernie that I would go look into these concerns that people had been expressing, and the things I found deeply disturbed me. And she laid out what a lot of the concerns she had were. And then what happened was, despite the fact that she was this longtime Clinton ally herself, all of the Clinton allies threw her under the bus and started attacking her immediately and saying she was full of shit and like lying about things and being paid by the Russians and was delusional and lost her mind. No fucking wonder she's mad now.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only issue I took of it is the fact that she wanted to write her article like 5 days before an election, an important election, which we all knew that like we couldn't trust the polls on because we lost.
Yeah, we were horribly wrong on the polls. They were way better for the Democrats than we were polling.
I think her rollout of this should have been after, like it should have been this week.
Part of it wasn't.
I could agree with you before the election that maybe that was a thing, but looking at it now, no.
Yeah, but hindsight's
hindsight is 2020 to be
right. But we are on the other side, and you're still saying that. And the election went amazing.
No, because I still think that needs. We can't always cut off our nose to spite our face.
But I don't think that's what happened.
We got lucky.
I don't think all of those wins was luck. I think all of those wins was
hard fucking work that was put in.
That's true.
There you go.
I think that I don't think that it actually really hurt the cause. I think acknowledging, like having people that were part of the actual DNC coming out and talking about these issues, to some extent, helped restore a little bit of faith in the Democratic Party. If the Democrats were more willing to acknowledge their flaws and admit when they've fucked up, especially when they fucked up hard like that, then people would be a lot more willing to forgive them their flaws and trust them when they say they're going to do better next time. But
especially if they come out with the actual, here are the fixes that we're implementing in a provable, transparent way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that might get me interested again.
But I haven't heard anyone say that yet.
Yeah, no. The big media is not going to say stuff like that.
And I haven't heard any big Democrats really say it.
I mean, there was Tom Perez said something about he said there was going to commit to like a fully transparent but he didn't actually like lay out any details about how that happens.
And you know what?
He just purged a bunch of longtime Democrats from senior positions in the party.
I didn't read too much into that because I was like distracted.
All the Sanders Ellison supporters.
All of them, but several of them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were people that had lost their seats or something, but some of them were also like old distinguished party leaders that normally, even if they're going to get removed, then the new chair would like come and talk with them and be like, I understand, we really appreciate that you've been with the party so long, but you don't hold a seat currently, so we need to put someone else in that super delegate position. And they'd be like, all right, fair enough, but that's not what happened here. He just purged them and didn't even talk to them.
And honestly, I mean, I hate
great way to run a party.
I hate to be like not superficial.
Great way to run a party.
Superficial, but like Tom Perez is not a great spokesperson.
No, he really isn't.
He comes
I do not like watching him talk.
No, it's very awkward, and I mean, they would be better off making Keith Ellison like the spokesperson because he is great in interviews.
Eloquent.
He's very
passionate,
and he's like captivating, and he really just like pulls you in and like gets you interested. So it's like even if like he has to just like read what the DNC like gives him to say, like he would at least say it. It would
still look better.
It would still sound better. It would entice more people, and it would energize more people.
And unlike Perez, Ellison has actually won an election other than for DNC chair. Tom Perez has never won an election other than that. He has no experience winning, and he wasn't even a candidate until Barack Obama and some other senior Democrats were like, well, fuck Ellison. Who's the establishment person we can put in? And Perez wasn't even that establishment. He was fairly progressive as a labor secretary, not super progressive, but reasonably.
But he did do some good things. But he's just like he's kind of painful to listen to.
Like, why is this guy the one in charge? He should be somewhere in a back office doing some work, sure, but like, why is he the head of the party?
Yeah,
they have a lot of work ahead of them. I just want it to be transparent.
They don't seem willing to do it. That bothers me. That's the part that bothers me.
I would say on all of this, read the book, make your own conclusions on that one. Don't necessarily pay attention to mass media's spin on this. They just want sensational headlines for views.
Be very careful about when you read people trying to fact check, because there's a lot of people that, for example, there's this thing where people were saying that, the Hillary Victory Fund actually didn't keep all the money. It was going out to the states like they said. But then if you actually looked at the FEC filings, a lot of that money was being transferred from the Hillary Victory Fund to the state parties. And then the same day, the state party would transfer the exact same amount of money to the DNC, which was being run by the Hillary campaign.
Yeah, it was not good. They didn't actually break a law there, but man, that should be illegal.
Yeah, and I mean, like they said the fact
they
that
found
people
a loophole.
The fact that people are like pointing to things on like open secrets and being like, "See, it's debunked." But if you actually dig in, their debunking isn't really true because a lot of that money was going back to the DNC.
But also, like
most of it.
No one really knows like finances except for the people who are finding the loopholes to exploit them.
That's very true.
So
Once
like,
you get good enough to understand things, that's what you do, I assume.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, so whenever it's like, oh, she stole, she's rigged, this proof, it's proof. Like, first of all, you don't understand finances. I know you don't fucking understand
Right.
finances because there's a reason why there's lawyers doing this shit because even they don't even understand what they're doing sometimes. It's just like, it's frustrating that we keep coming back to this like Hillary argument where it's like, no, the DNC is separate from the Clinton campaign, or sure it should be. And
Yeah, it wasn't.
There is well,
At all.
It wasn't
Even
because
slightly.
there.
She had veto power on anyone they could hire.
Okay, listen.
And their
If by
messaging.
cutting off a woman talking is like not a really good look for you.
You cut me off all the time.
Because I can.
Yep.
That's how the rules work. I veto powdered it.
Nice.
Well played.
Let's just say this. There is a lot there, and I think me and Kayla kind of find ourselves a little bit on opposite sides on that one, but
At least-
not all the way. Not all the way.
There's
Just,
definitely
you know,
a lot of common ground there, I think.
there's a lot of common ground.
I
and
just, it's like we can have these conversations without constantly having to make it about Hillary. She's not the party anymore.
I'm okay
Thank
with that.
God.
It's just, we have to recognize when we're talking about like what happened in the past, which we kind of have to in order to say that this is what's been going on. It's relevant.
Fix it without looking at what actually happened.
I'm happy to talk about it separate from that context, but when we're talking about the historical parts, it's kind of important, especially since this is the one that
Yeah,
we
Can't
and
have
talk
a lot
about
of
Watergate
information
without
about.
talking about Nixon, you know.
And
So
Hillary
like,
was part of the Watergate takedown. So, you know.
See, it all comes back to
Also-
Hillary. It's your fault now.
see, look at you. What are you doing
No,
here?
it's just like we have to also learn like the loaded terms like rigged, stole, like those are really hot like terms. They're very they're very potent, and people will harp on them, and then that's what gets exploited, and that's what gets vilified, and that's what gets spread and goes viral, and that's what becomes the memes.
Of
But
course.
I mean, it does bother me because people are weirdly rigid on the meaning of rigged in this one and only context.
Yes.
If you weight a roulette wheel so that one number comes up slightly more often, you've still rigged that roulette table.
Even if you're
it
not going to
doesn't-
win every time, it's still
It could be a
in your
tiny
favor.
fraction
but
of things.
the
It's
odds
still,
will just are forever in your favor.
yes.
And that's the type of rigging we're talking about here.
We're not talking, absolutely.
You know I
fix
love you,
the
Kayla, right?
results.
No, and I think right now, like it's just like some loaded terms because they're so hot and like because people take advantage of them. It's like
I
we can
agree.
talk in these ways where it's like we don't have to say those words.
I mean,
We can be like she had a very heavy hand in it,
Yeah.
and even if you say heavy hand, people won't have such a visceral reaction as to rigged.
Just,
Right,
it,
right,
it bothers me because I think it's legitimately fair to use the word rigged, but on the one hand, you have people saying, "Oh, that's not what rigged means." Like, if you didn't if you didn't stack the deck entirely, it's not rigged. And on the other hand, you have people like, rigging, therefore votes were changed. I'm like, what is wrong with
Neither
both
of
you
those are
people?
true.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid the automatic knee-jerk reaction of she was able to like somehow get a legal 3 to 5 million legal votes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
All right. I think we're
that
running in
was-
circles here at
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point. I think
we've
we're,
exhausted that
Well,
topic
because
for
I'm
now.
hangry and you won't let me go home to eat.
we've locked the doors. No, seriously. I think we're going to call it here so Kayla can go get some food. This is an extra long episode, and I think it's good night, everyone. Welcome
Yeah.
to the end of episode 33.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by Gregg Housh, executive produced by co-host Derek Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie LoCicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.